In this video, we're going to talk about stalking, why people stalk, the different kinds of stalkers, and why you should never just ignore someone that is stalking you. In preparation for my book, Left for Dead, the crime thriller, I had the pleasure of interviewing one of the leading experts in stalking in the UK, and what I've done is I have jotted down some notes and I've also got a blog post about stalking. Now, the term stalking comes from animals stalking their prey, but the actual phrase stalking, as in characterised of one person stalking another, comes from the tragic murder in 1990 where actress Rebecca Schaeffer was murdered by an obsessed fan named Robert John Bardo. Stalking is a goal-driven behaviour in which the stalker creates fear and alarm to the victim. Stalking takes various different forms, and that one stalker is different to another stalker. If you've met one stalker, you have met one stalker. Everyone who is a stalker stalks differently. A stalker has an unhealthy preoccupation with another person, and to them it's almost like a job. It's a secondary thing what they do during their day. They might go to work, they may have families, they may have perfectly functioning lives, but they are stalking somebody. To them, it's an obsession, it's fixated, it's unwanted by the victim, and it's repetitive. What are the different kinds of stalking? There are three main kinds of stalkers. The most common types of stalkers are the rejected stalker. This can be an ex-partner, this can be an old friend, this can be somebody who the victim has had some kind of relationship with. Maybe it was a relationship, an intimate relationship. It could be that it was a one-night stand. It could be someone who the victim has known professionally. It could be an old doctor, an old teacher, an old co-worker. Either way, the victim no longer wants to have anything to do with the stalker, which is why they're called a rejected stalker. And 50% of the time, the victim knows who the stalker is. And the motivation behind the stalking in this case is, it isn't that the suspect wants to hurt the victim, not initially. It's that the stalker wants to regain what the victim gave them. Maybe they have some kind of abandonment issues, so they have some kind of attachment issues. There is a correlation between borderline personality disorder and stalking, but one does not equal the other. And I'm not saying that people who have BPD, borderline personality disorder, are automatically going to be stalking somebody. However, the overwhelming fears of abandonment and the feeling of rejection, which is prevalent in stalkers and in BPD, do have some kind of correlation. Generally, the aim in a rejected stalker is not to harm the victim, but instead to make the stalker feel better. Now, what typically happens is a rejected stalker will make attempts to rekindle that relationship, whether it's buying flowers, whether it's different kinds of communication, setting up profiles online, in an attempt to win over the victim of the stalking. Now, initially, the rejected stalker will try to make attempts to rekindle the relationship which they've lost. This could be the rejected stalker will attend the workplace of the victim. It could be the rejected stalker will attend the home of the victim. It could be they will appear unannounced, or they will loiter around the victim's work for a chance encounter. It could be they will go to the same supermarkets they know that they frequent, the same bars, the same place, any way they can to have some kind of interaction with the victim. This contact is obviously unwanted by the victim. This can include such things as gifts, it could be presents, it could be sending messages over social media, it could be changing the profile names on Netflix to show a message, it could be sending little bits of money through a bank account, it could be withheld phone calls, it could be text messages from other numbers, it could be calls from unrecognised numbers. It's anything that the stalker can do in an attempt to try and bridge that gap and to stop the victim from rejecting them, believing that if only they would hear them out and they would rekindle their relationship, then everything will be better. The danger comes in when the stalker has been rejected enough times, they know that what they're doing isn't working and that they may never ever get into a relationship with the victim again, or they will never rekindle what the stalker wants to get back. This could be such things as the stalker finding out that the victim has now got a new relationship, or the police are involved, or there is some kind of legal action, which is a trigger for the stalking behaviour to then escalate. This is where things can get dangerous, because the rejected stalker then knows that their attempts are in vain, and they will then justify in their mind that the victim has hurt them, so now they are entitled to harm the victim. And this, like I said, this is where it can get dangerous. There's a worrying statistic that 50% of all stalkers that are rejected stalkers carry out their threats of violence. And what is important is that you don't just ignore these threats. If you believe you are being stalked, or you know someone that is being stalked, you must speak to someone professional about it, because these things don't go away. In the very rare case that the stalker does leave the victim alone, it's generally because the stalker has got a new infatuation. They have found someone new that captures their attention, thus meaning that the victim of the initial stalking is now irrelevant to them. But do not count on this. Like I said, in 50% of cases, this escalates to the point where either violence is used or in some cases homicide. Next most common form of stalker is the incompetent suitor stalker. Now this is more about pleasing the victim. If you imagine the Jim Carrey movie Cable Guy is a movie where Jim Carrey plays a character which befriends the other character in the film, and Jim Carrey's character simply just wants to please the other character. He wants to be friends with the other character. This is about pleasing somebody else, pleasing the victim, but of course that contact is still unwanted. And generally, people who do the incompetent suitor stalker are people that are maybe neurodivergent, they have some form of autism, they have some form of learning disability, in which they're not able to understand the social cues, in that the victim does not want to have anything to do with them. And this can start off as something very innocuous, very simple. It could be someone holds a door open for them, someone says hello, someone smiles at somebody. It could be somebody in a coffee shop handing somebody a drink and saying, have a great day. The stalker might then interpret that as, oh, we need to be friends, we want to be friends, and then they can't let go of that infatuation they have with the other person. Even though this is more benign, this is more about pleasing the victim, this does not mean that the victim wants this kind of contact. And if you are having something like this, you may still be in stalk. So again, you need to try and get professional help or seek advice around that. The third kind of stalker is the sadistic or the malevolent stalker. These are thankfully very rare, and this is purely about the hunt. These types of stalkers are typically psychopaths, very sadistic people, which they enjoy inflicting misery on their target, on their prey. They see themselves as a hunter, and the victim of the stalking is the prey. And in these kinds of situations, the stalking can go on for a long time, and the victim never actually know who is stalking them, which causes more distress and fear for the victim, because they are questioning their own reality. They don't know what's happening. They don't know whether they are or they are not being stalked. The goal in this kind of stalking is purely to torment and cause misery to the victim. And this is what a sadistic stalker is doing. Thankfully, these are very rare, and it's much more likely if you are ever a victim of stalking or you come into contact with someone that is being stalked, it's likely to be the rejected stalker or the incompetent suitor stalker. Very rare that the malevolent stalker occurs. When it comes to the demographic of stalkers, most stalkers are male to female, men stalking women, and this typically happens around the age of 35 to 40, generally when children are involved and a relationship breaks down, a marriage breaks down. This typically again will be the rejected stalker. Maybe the woman leaves the relationship and then there's a messy divorce, the children involved, etc. The suspect, the stalker, typically the man in the relationship, can then enact feelings of revenge and feel that they are entitled to then harm the victim. This again typically is the age range, and this is typically the demographic. That's not to say women don't stalk men, that's not to say in same-sex couples this doesn't happen either, but typically from a statistical standpoint, it is generally men stalking women, generally around the ages of 35 to 50, because this would be when a relationship, a marriage, assets, etc., children come into play. Now, does a stalker know that they're a stalker? Typically the answer is no. Like I said, generally they will have quite functioning lives. They will have families, they will have friends, they will have activities, hobbies, they will have functioning jobs, they will be functioning people. And the stalking is a darker aspect of their personality and their daily activities. And plus, if a stalker knew that they were stalking someone that was causing harm, then that would elicit empathy. And if we knew what we were doing was wrong, then we wouldn't do it. If a stalker knew what they were doing was having such a bad impact on their victim, they wouldn't stalk them. That said, if you have a rejected stalker or a malevolent stalker, they might see it as they are justified in what they're doing, but yet not identify as a stalker because of the negative connotations which the word being a stalker has. When it comes to the methodology of a stalker, how people stalk other people, well, because of modern day technology such as Google's and Alexa's, etc., people have found that these can be hacked into, and stalkers can listen to conversations in someone's house, which is why it's important to have strong Wi-Fi passwords, change Wi-Fi passwords, etc. if you split up with a partner. It can also be hacking of phones, it can be tracking of phones. It could be following somebody on their way home from work. It could be speaking to their friends and family, asking them to pass on messages for them. But the most common kinds of stalking, in my experience, what I've seen, are withheld phone calls, late night phone calls, turning up to places of work, frequenting places where the victim is generally likely to be, such as bars, a favourite place where they walk the dog. It could be work, it could be a supermarket, etc. On Tuesdays, Mary does a shopping at Tesco, so on Tuesday I'm going to go shopping at Tesco because then Mary will be there and then we'll be able to talk. But like I said, there are the more insidious tactics such as tracking and following, which can cause serious alarm, and the victim might not necessarily know these sorts of things are actually happening. Now, what if you are being stalked? If you are being stalked, then you must seek help and support from the authorities. The authorities are able to put things in place, put safeguarding in place, and of course take legal action, putting restraining orders against someone who is stalking. If this behaviour persists and continues, then the stalker could be imprisoned. One famous example of this could be the stalker Jacqueline Adis, I think I'm saying her name correctly, who was imprisoned for stalking when she threatened to make sushi out of her victim's kidneys. Unfortunately, victims of stalking downplay that they are being stalked, which makes sense because to be stalked, to accept that you're being stalked, is a terrifying, terrifying thing. The fact that you know that somebody is thinking of you, following you, is making attempts to contact you, you're always wondering and you're always on hyper alert and you're hyper vigilant as to where this person might be in any one particular time. If you are seeing a recurrent pattern of behaviour which doesn't seem to make sense and you suspect it's from another person and you've told them that you don't want anything to do with them, and yet you're seeing them at your work, you're seeing them hanging around, you're getting random phone calls in the middle of the night and you believe it's them, you're getting bank transactions from them with small amounts of money, you're getting unexpected gifts arriving at your home, then you really need to think, if I ignore this, will this get better? The answer to that is in most cases, if not all cases, no, it does not get better. The only way how you can really get a stalker to leave you alone is by involving the police and the authorities. There is also the National Stalking Helpline, which is there, and I will put the link to their website in the description to this video. If you believe you're a victim of stalking or something's not quite adding up, then why don't you just speak to them? It can't hurt to reach out for help. Everybody, thank you very much for watching. If you want to support the channel further, you can subscribe to the channel completely free. You can support me on Patreon, or you can scan that barcode right there and head to my website, jdarkmoreauthor.com, and you can join my newsletter, and you also get a free novella when you do so called Gaslight, which is a crime thriller novella. If you enjoy this kind of content, then why not click on one of these videos here, and I will see you in the next video. Until then,